She wasn't a gangster in the streets or a politician in power. She was far more dangerous. In the heart of New York's Chinatown, one woman quietly built an empire worth over $100 million, not from drugs or weapons, but from human lives. Her name was whispered with fear and awe. Sister Ping, the woman who turned illegal immigration into a global business. To desperate families in China, she was a savior, offering hope and a ticket to a new life in America. But to law enforcement, she was a ghost, a mastermind running one of the most powerful and secretive human trafficking networks in the world. From the dark ports of Fujian to the crowded streets of Manhattan, her operation spanned oceans and continents. She controlled ships, gangs, and entire smuggling routes with iron precision. Thousands risked their lives under her promise of freedom. Many never made it. She became known as the Snakehead Queen, the untouchable ruler of a billion-dollar underground empire. This is the true story of how one woman rose from poverty to become the most feared human trafficker in modern history, and how it all came crashing down. In the late 20th century, as China's economy struggled and poverty consumed entire villages, thousands dreamed of a new life in America, the Gold Mountain, where opportunity seemed endless. But for most, reaching it was impossible. Passports, visas, and legal routes were out of reach. That's when one woman stepped in, Cheng Chui Ping, later known as Sister Ping. She promised something no government could, a guaranteed path to America. Operating from the back of her small shop in New York's Chinatown, Sister Ping began building connections that would soon span the globe. From corrupt officials in Asia to smugglers in South America and gang leaders in New York, her web of influence grew fast. Her clients, ordinary villagers, sold everything they owned, trusting her to deliver them to freedom. For some, she was a lifeline. For others, a curse. The journeys she arranged were brutal. Weeks trapped inside cargo ships, hidden compartments, or fake identity routes across jungles and deserts. Yet, despite the danger, thousands kept coming. Because unlike others, Sister Ping always delivered. Behind her calm smile was an empire built on human desperation, loyalty, and fear. Her story isn't just about crime. It's about power, survival, and the price people are willing to pay for a dream. This is how Sister Ping became one of the most feared and powerful figures in America's hidden underworld. Cheng Chui Ping was born in a small village in China's Fujian province, a place where life was defined by poverty and struggle. From an early age, she learned that survival depended on cleverness and determination. She was quiet, observant, and fiercely ambitious. Unlike others who accepted their fate, she dreamed of something greater. After China began opening up to the world in the late 1970s, migration to foreign countries became a growing obsession for many. People wanted to escape poverty and find opportunities abroad, especially in America, the land of dreams. But legal migration was nearly impossible for the poor. That's where Sister Ping saw an opportunity. She started small, running a grocery store in New York's Chinatown after immigrating herself in the early 1980s. Her shop became more than just a business. It was a meeting point for the desperate, the hopeful, and the connected. Behind the counter, deals were whispered. People came to her asking for help to bring their families from Fujian to America. At first, she helped through simple arrangements with middlemen, charging a small fee. But soon, she realized how massive the demand was. The journey that once cost a few $1,000s quickly grew into a full-scale underground operation. Her method was straightforward, but incredibly effective. Villagers would pay tens of thousands of dollars, often their life savings, to be transported to the United States. She would arrange the route, coordinate transport through other snakeheads in Asia, and ensure their arrival through complex networks of smugglers, fake passports, and bribed officials. Her reputation spread fast. In Chinatown, she became known as a woman who could make the impossible possible. Those who paid her trusted her completely because, unlike others, she always delivered results. By the mid-1980s, Sister Ping was no longer a small-time smuggler. She was the mastermind behind a global network that connected China to America through countries like Thailand, Guatemala, and Mexico. Her operations ran like clockwork. Boats, trucks, and safe houses were organized with military precision. Even U.S. immigration officers began to suspect her influence, but couldn't catch her. She had built a system that worked invisibly, blending within the fabric of Chinatown's immigrant life. But with power came danger. To protect her clients and maintain control, she began working with violent gangs, most notably the Phúc Chinh gang, led by the infamous AK. They became her enforcers, collecting debts, guarding migrants, and ensuring no one betrayed her. The partnership made her untouchable. The gangs respected her authority and feared her wrath. Despite her criminal empire, she kept a modest public image, living quietly, donating to temples and helping families in need. This double life made her a legend. To the authorities, she was a ghost. To the people, she was a savior. Sister Ping's power didn't come from violence, but from loyalty. She built her empire on trust, a rare quality in the underworld. Families believed in her word so deeply that they mortgaged their homes to pay her. In a community where everyone knew someone she had helped, her name carried almost mythical weight. But beneath that aura of trust was a darker truth. Every successful trip she arranged relied on dangerous routes, ruthless smugglers, and corrupt officials willing to trade human lives for cash. As her wealth grew, so did her ambition. She began expanding her operations further, using secret financial channels to move millions across borders. From a small village girl to one of Chinatown's most powerful figures, Sister Ping had risen to the top of an empire built not on products or drugs, but on people. She had mastered the art of turning hope into profit, and by the time the world started to notice, it was already too late. The queen of the Snakeheads had arrived, and her empire was just getting started. By the early 1990s, Sister Ping's empire had become one of the most sophisticated smuggling operations in the world. What started as a small network of contacts had now transformed into a sprawling web stretching across continents. From her quiet apartment in New York's Chinatown, she controlled an underground business that generated millions of dollars each year, not through violence or intimidation, but through organization, intelligence, and fear. Every journey she arranged required careful coordination between corrupt officials, ship captains, local fixers, and snakehead partners in Asia, Europe, and Latin America. Her methods were brutal but efficient. Migrants were often hidden in the cargo holds of rusty freighters, locked away for weeks or even months. Some were smuggled through Southeast Asia, sent to South America, and then guided north through jungles and deserts until they reached the U.S. border. Others were given fake visas and flown into Canada or Mexico before being brought across hidden routes. The cost of this passage could range from $20,000 to $50,000 per person, depending on the route and risk. For poor families in China, it was a fortune, but they believed the price was worth it for the promise of America. Sister Ping's greatest strength was her reputation. In Chinatown, people spoke of her with both respect and fear. She was known to be fair, but ruthless. If you paid your debts, she treated you kindly. If you didn't, the gangs she worked with, like AK's Phúc Chinh crew, would make sure you regretted it. AK and his men became her enforcers, ensuring loyalty through intimidation. They guarded safe houses, collected payments, and handled the cargo when ships arrived. Sister Ping rarely got her hands dirty. She let others do the dangerous work while she pulled the strings from behind the scenes. Despite the cruelty of her system, many still admired her. In a world where illegal migrants were often cheated, beaten, or left stranded, Sister Ping had a reputation for reliability. Those who reached America through her routes were safe, and she kept her promises, which, in the underworld, made her more valuable than gold. This trust allowed her business to grow unchecked for years. Even law enforcement couldn't touch her. Agents from the FBI, INS, and Interpol knew her name, but they couldn't find proof that would stick. Her transactions were in cash, her communications through coded messages, and her witnesses either too loyal or too afraid to speak. By 1993, Sister Ping's network had smuggled thousands of people into the United States. She had properties across Chinatown, investments in underground banks, and millions hidden in offshore accounts. She attended community events, donated to charities, and presented herself as a humble businesswoman. Most people in Chinatown saw her as one of their own, a woman who helped her people escape hardship. Few dared to call her what she truly was, one of the most powerful human traffickers in the world. But cracks were beginning to show. The larger her network grew, the harder it became to control. Some of her partners became greedy, pocketing extra money or mistreating the migrants. Rival snakeheads tried to steal her clients or attack her routes. Akei's gang, once loyal, started drawing too much attention with their violence and public shootings. The more brutal the Fuqing became, the more pressure law enforcement applied to Chinatown. Rumors spread that federal agents were closing in. Still, Sister Ping remained calm. She believed her connections and her careful distance from the violence would protect her. But her empire was becoming too visible. Her ships were being tracked, her partners arrested, and her name whispered in government reports. The woman who once operated in silence was now becoming infamous, and that fame would soon bring her downfall. For Sister Ping, the empire she had built on trust and fear was entering its most dangerous chapter. In June 1993, the entire world came face to face with the dark reality of Sister Ping's empire. A massive cargo ship called the Golden Venture had left Thailand months earlier, carrying nearly 300 Chinese migrants who had each paid small fortunes to reach America. They had spent more than 100 days trapped in the ship's filthy, airless hold, starving, dehydrated, and terrified. Many had no idea where they were or if they'd ever reach land. Their journey was one of suffering, hope, and desperation, all orchestrated by the same snakehead network that Sister Ping helped finance and control. As the Golden Venture finally approached the U.S. coast near Queens, New York, disaster struck. In the early morning hours of June 6, 1993, the ship ran aground just a few hundred feet from the shore. Panic broke out. Men and women threw themselves into the cold Atlantic waters, trying to swim for their lives. Some managed to reach land, crawling onto the sand in exhaustion. Others drowned within sight of their dream. 10 people died that night, their bodies washing ashore as rescue teams and media helicopters arrived. The horrifying images of desperate migrants clinging to the side of a sinking ship spread across every news channel in America. For the first time, the public saw the hidden cost of human smuggling, the faces of those who had paid everything for freedom. The U.S. government immediately launched a full-scale investigation. The Immigration and Naturalization Service, INS, and FBI traced the network behind the Golden Venture and quickly discovered it wasn't an isolated case. This was part of a vast criminal system, one run by the Snakeheads, and at its center stood Sister Ping. Her name surfaced in intelligence reports, witness statements, and financial records. She wasn't on the ship, but her fingerprints were all over the operation. Authorities learned that she had financed several voyages like the Golden Venture, providing money, routes, and logistical support to smugglers and gangs. One of her main partners was Akei, the brutal leader of the Fuqing gang, who had been responsible for managing many of the migrants once they arrived in the U.S. Through Akei's testimony and wiretaps, investigators began piecing together the true scale of her empire, stretching from Fujian to Hong Kong, Thailand, Kenya, and all the way to New York. For years, Sister Ping had remained untouchable because she operated behind layers of intermediaries. But the Golden Venture tragedy changed everything. The deaths of innocent migrants forced the U.S. government to act decisively. Task forces were created, arrests were made, and new laws were drafted to combat human smuggling. Sister Ping's name became infamous in both America and China. Newspapers called her the Queen of Human Smuggling. To her loyal supporters in Chinatown, however, she was still a hero, the woman who gave their families a future. Knowing the heat was coming, Sister Ping disappeared. She fled America before authorities could charge her, escaping back to China where she had deep connections and protection. The U.S. demanded her extradition, but Beijing refused to hand her over. From afar, she continued to manage her money and influence through relatives and associates. Meanwhile, her empire began to fracture. Without her iron control, rival snakeheads fought for dominance. The Fuqing gang descended into chaos as internal betrayals and arrests tore them apart. The Golden Venture tragedy marked the turning point in Sister Ping's story. What was once a secret network now stood exposed to the world. Her reputation as a quiet, careful operator was gone, replaced by the image of a cold-hearted trafficker whose greed had led to death. Yet, even as the world condemned her, many of her former clients refused to speak against her. They still believed she had kept her promises, even when the price was life itself. The sinking of the Golden Venture didn't just end lives. It shattered the illusion of safety surrounding the Snakehead empire. And for Sister Ping, it set in motion the chain of events that would finally bring her to justice. After the tragedy of the Golden Venture, Sister Ping's empire began to crumble under the weight of global attention. The U.S. government had declared war on the Snakeheads, and Sister Ping was now their primary target. She had escaped to China, but her name was on every Interpol list, and her photograph was circulating among international law enforcement agencies. Yet, even while on the run, she was not hiding in fear. She was strategizing. Using her network of contacts, she continued to move money, maintain safe houses, and oversee her smuggling routes from afar. She had become a legend, a ghost that no one could catch. Meanwhile, the FBI, the INS, and other agencies built their case. They tracked her financial records, interviewed witnesses, and followed the trail of migrants who had paid her. But the breakthrough came from within her own network. Ake, once her trusted enforcer, had been arrested for murder and extortion. Facing life in prison, he decided to cooperate with U.S. authorities. His testimony changed everything. He began revealing the secrets of the Snakehead empire, describing in detail how Sister Ping financed the smuggling operations, arranged payments through underground banks, and used gang violence to control her clients. His words painted her as the godmother of human trafficking, the mastermind behind the largest smuggling operation America had ever seen. Armed with Ake's cooperation, the U.S. finally indicted Sister Ping on multiple charges, including human smuggling, money laundering, kidnapping, and hostage-taking. Her empire, once untouchable, was now collapsing piece by piece. Associates were arrested in New York, Hong Kong, and Thailand. Bank accounts were frozen. Properties were seized. For years, Sister Ping remained hidden in mainland China, confident that the U.S. could never reach her. But her confidence would soon fade. In 2000, she made a critical mistake. Believing she was safe, she traveled to Hong Kong to visit family and attend to her business. What she didn't realize was that Hong Kong had a strong extradition treaty with the United States. Acting on intelligence from the FBI and Interpol, Hong Kong authorities arrested her on the spot. The woman who had once smuggled thousands into America was now handcuffed, facing extradition to the very country she had outsmarted for decades. Her capture was a global headline. When Sister Ping arrived in New York under heavy security, media cameras flashed as she was escorted into court. The Chinatown community watched in disbelief. Some were relieved, others heartbroken. Many still saw her as a hero who had simply helped people chase the American dream. But the U.S. government saw her differently, as a ruthless criminal who had profited from human misery. During her trial, prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence: financial ledgers, coded communications, testimony from AK and other gang members, and accounts from migrants who had survived her journeys. They described how her clients were often held hostage in safe houses until their families paid off debts, sometimes through violence or threats. They showed how her network used ships like the Golden Venture to move human beings across oceans like disposable cargo. Yet through it all, Sister Ping remained calm. She never cried, never showed remorse. When given the chance to speak, she denied being a criminal. She claimed she had only helped people find better lives, something the system had failed to provide. Her composure both fascinated and frightened those in the courtroom. She had lived her entire life in control, and even now, facing justice, she refused to break. In 2005, the verdict came. Sister Ping was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison for running a massive human smuggling operation. The courtroom was silent as she was led away. The queen of the Snakeheads finally dethroned. But even in defeat, her story wasn't over. For those she helped and those she hurt, her name would never be forgotten. She had become more than a criminal. She was a legend, a symbol of how desperation and power can twist into something dark and unstoppable. When the cell door finally closed behind Sister Ping, it seemed like the end of an era. The woman who had once ruled a $100 million empire of human trafficking now sat alone inside a federal prison in Texas. The FBI called her a criminal mastermind. Prosecutors saw her as a heartless exploiter of human lives. But outside those prison walls, in the crowded apartments and restaurants of Chinatown, many people still whispered her name with a strange kind of respect. To them, she wasn't a monster. She was a woman who had done what governments couldn't. She brought people to America, no matter the risk. During her years in prison, Sister Ping remained stoic. She never apologized, never asked for mercy, and never admitted guilt. She lived quietly, often writing letters to her family in China, giving advice, and reminding them to stay united. Prison officials described her as calm and polite, a woman who followed rules and kept to herself. But even behind bars, her legend continued to grow. Reporters wrote about her case, books were published, and documentaries explored her story. She had become a symbol, not just of crime, but of the complicated human desire for freedom and opportunity. In 2014, after nearly a decade behind bars, Sister Ping died at the age of 65. The official cause was complications from a heart-related illness, but her death resonated far beyond the prison gates. In Chinatown, hundreds gathered to honor her memory. Some came in secret, lighting incense and praying for her soul. Others spoke openly, calling her Auntie Ping, a woman who had helped their families start a new life in America. Even after her conviction, her name carried weight. A mixture of fear, respect, and gratitude. Her story didn't end with her death. The snakehead networks she once controlled didn't disappear. They simply evolved. Modern smugglers adopted new tools, encrypted messaging apps, fake digital identities, and cryptocurrency payments. The routes she pioneered through Asia, Africa, and South America are still used today. While Sister Ping may have been gone, her methods lived on, reshaped by a new generation of traffickers who studied her rise and fall. To many, Sister Ping's life represents a contradiction, the fine line between savior and criminal. She helped thousands reach America, yet countless others suffered or died trying. She built her empire on loyalty and trust, but it was also powered by exploitation and greed. She was a mother figure to some, a villain to others, and a mystery to everyone in between. Her legacy forces us to ask difficult questions. Was she evil for creating the system? Or was she simply responding to a world that left desperate people with no legal path to a better life? In her own words, she once claimed, "I only gave people what they wanted, a chance." That statement captures the complexity of her character, a woman who saw herself not as a criminal, but as a provider of hope. even if that hope came with a deadly price. Today, her name still lingers in Chinatown's narrow streets, spoken in low voices among the elderly and remembered in the stories of families who arrived through her roots. Some say she was a hero. Others call her the devil in disguise. But no one denies her impact. Sister Ping changed the course of thousands of lives, for better or worse, and her empire, built on dreams, fear, and human desperation, became one of the most extraordinary criminal legacies of the modern world. In death, just as in life, she remains one thing above all else: unforgettable.